Getting from A to B has become an increasingly intense activity across many advanced country societies. It's only quite recently, actually, that you look back into the history of this country, and most people never left the village that they were born in. Only with the arrival of the bicycle did people even go to the next village very frequently. And of course, since the period of the early Victorian era, when people didn't go very far at all, we've had the invention of the railway, the steamship, the automobile, the bus, and of course, more recently, the aeroplane. And all of these things are now in mass use. They are in massive demand and being used ever more widely across societies emerging from poverty and those that are now enjoying the benefits of a more interconnected existence. More cars, therefore, owned, more plane tickets being bought, and of course, more goods moving around the world ever greater distances on container ships, aeroplanes, and trains. All of this, of course, is leading to a massive environmental impact because nearly all of it is fueled by fossil energy, diesel and petrol, coal still to some extent. Very little of it is purely electric. Some of the railways are, but most of it isn't. And so if we are going to have a good chance of dealing with the climate change challenge, as well as the massive land use demand that comes with transport infrastructure, we need to think differently about how we move people and goods and services around our planet. Now, some of this is about shifting the mode of the transport, less on planes, more on ships, less in cars, more on bikes. All of those things are pretty positive. But in the end, we're going to need to shift the demand profile for transportation, which means doing more things locally if we are going to have a chance of being able to meet those net zero targets that are there for mid-century. And so this is something that everybody can focus on through their day-to-day lives in terms of how they source products and services. Can you get what you need locally, even if it's something that is quite a high-tech product that does require manufacturing remotely? Can you at least get it made in your own country rather than on the other side of the world? And your food supply, the same goes for that. And quite a few consumers in this country do try to buy British food because they've seen some of these connections linked with greenhouse gas emissions and long distance transport. So you can do those kinds of things to try and relocalize your footprint in terms of the transport that it demands. And then, of course, thinking about long distance transport, I think simply the message at the moment, until we get hydrogen aeroplanes and the electrification of transport more widely, is to try and cut down on those long distance travel because it does have a big impact. And certainly I, for one, think that the less you can do with that, the better your quality of life. So it's not necessarily a total sacrifice to at least cut down on some of that long distance transportation. And then there is the opportunity to, as always, speak to elected leaders in terms of how they can shape the transportation system going forward. It's remarkable that in some countries it's much cheaper to fly than it is to go by surface transport, despite the massive difference in the environmental impact. What can be done about the economics of that? Could there be greater effort to even out the cost of a train ticket compared to a plane ticket to begin to make it more attractive to go on the ground and with much less environmental impact that might be the case than going by aeroplane? So this convenience of transport, the instantaneous ability to be able to go from literally one side of the world to the other, it's very recent and it's got some big implications. And going to a position in the future where we can rely less on that is also got some quite fundamental questions linked to it. But if we are going to avoid the worst consequences of climate change, then some of these questions we really need to think about.